OMGesus, boys, girls, in-betweeners, how you doing? Red Gamut back with another mix-up. And this isn't anything that's really time sensitive, it's not about a hot topic or anything like that. It's just about a question which I got asked in my stream chat the other night, and it kind of set me off on a little bit of a rant because it's something that I've been thinking about for a while, and it's been something I've been meaning to make a video about for a while. And that question is, does playing a top tier character make you better than you actually are? Now, on paper, the answer to that would be yes, because, I mean, why wouldn't it make you better? I mean, you get easier wins, you get simpler combos, you get setups, you get less need to think critically during a match. It's just something that augments you in terms of skill and gives you an advantage over your competitors. So, as a result, it is possible for a bad player to get good results if they are playing a top tier character. Obviously they can't be too bad because they're still going to lose regardless, but if there's only a small skill gap between you and your opponent, a high tier character can help you to close that gap and make the difference almost nothing. So why don't we all play high tier characters? I think the answer to that is pretty obvious. Obviously people have different reasons for picking different characters, and just the idea of winning or having an easier time doesn't always factor into that. I picked Jury because I just like Jury. I think she's really cool. I like her personality. I think she's a lot of fun to play. If she was, she's been high tier in other games, she's low tier in this game, it doesn't really bother me. I mean, it does bother me, but it wouldn't stop me from playing her either way. But this is all surface level. I want to talk about I want to go a little bit deeper in terms of the discussion here. Now, before we go into that, there was a video which was posted not that long ago, which was regarding it being an advantage to play a low tier character. And why would you say play a low? How is that an advantage? How does that make sense? The answer to that is that if you pick a low tier character, someone that just nobody plays because they're supposed to be universally awful, you happen to be quite good with that character because you've put the time in, you've spent time looking at the resources, you've practiced, you've honed your skills, you go in to fight someone who has never fought that character before, but you fought their character plenty of times. Obviously you have a bit of an edge there, because you can predict what they're going to do to a certain extent, whereas they can't predict you at all. I can say from my own experience with Jury, I've had a lot of matches where I can just tell this person does not know how to fight Jury. They just don't know how to punch effectively, they don't know which moves are safe and which ones are unsafe, things like that. It doesn't happen that often. I mean, you'll run into people a lot of the time who have some familiarity, but not too much. But it's still an advantage one way or the other, up to a certain point. So this of course begs the topic of the video. Is the opposite true? Does playing a high tier character have a detrimental effect? Does it make you worse at the game? Does it make you more predictable? Things like that. It's a fun question that I want to take a deeper look at, because I believe the answer is yes. I think that making yourself use a high tier character because you just want the raw advantage that character gives you will make you not only predictable in some regards, which we'll go into in a moment, but it just makes you a softer player overall. It makes you less skilled, and it's more of a detriment to your ability to get better at the game in the long run. Now, before we go any further, there is an obvious caveat to this, which is this really only applies to new players or relatively low-level players, say players up to gold level, for example. If you're beyond that level, you probably have a fairly decent idea, and the higher you go after that, platinum, diamond, etc., the more that this is going to be less and less relevant. Obviously, Takedo is not a bad player just for maining Akuma. Daigo is not going to be trash if he drops Guile tomorrow. So you gotta take this with a little bit of a grain of salt. It's meant for the everyman, not for the high-level pro players. So that said, high tier characters, what makes them high tier? They're usually high tier for a few different reasons. They either get great damage, they have easy setups, they have lots of tools, they have good pressure, easy conversions, or even, in some cases, all of the above. But the question then becomes, what happens when those abilities go from being good tools that you can use to your advantage in the right situations to becoming a crutch? Now, what do I mean by that? Let's look at Akuma as an example. If you jump a lot, that's generally considered to be a bad thing in Street Fighter. But if you play Akuma, you can jump as much as you want and throw rare fireballs, and if you space them reasonably well, that gives you a safe approach practically every time. Now, obviously, there are characters who have different answers to this and whatnot, and that's not really part of the discussion right now. Against most characters, if they do not have a specific answer for a jump-in fireball, that means that every single time you jump in, theoretically, if you do it properly, you are safe. Not only are you safe, you're at advantage. because they have to block the fireball. There's no tool which can get them through that, and when they block it, you're plus, so it's still your turn. Where still, when you do land and you are plus, you can keep pressing buttons which are plus to keep things going and just rolling on continuously being your turn, allowing you to do frame traps, to do setups, things like that. The downside of this, of course, is that if your approach is always safe, then what reason do you have as a player to learn proper neutral? Why do you have to learn spacing? If your buttons are always going to be plus, then you don't need to worry about overextending in a given situation. Probably the worst and most egregious example of this is what we call flowcharting. So if you've never heard the term before, or if you don't know what it means, it's basically, you think about a flowchart. A flowchart gives you certain options. So if you say, if you jump in, your answer is, did they block? Yes or no? If yes, do this. If no, do this. Did they block the next follow-up? If yes, do this. If no, do this. And it continues on from there. That's what a basic flowchart does. It gives you yes or no options, which continue to branch out, allowing you to pick a particular path through the chart. Flowcharting is kind of the natural conclusion of what I'm talking about here, because when you flowchart in a fighting game, you essentially try to set up the fight so that you do not have to think at any point about what you need to do, because they're always going to be in a situation where you have a yes or no proposition. You jump in, you hit them. If you hit them, you knock them down. If they're knocked down, you do this. If they're not knocked down, you do this. So on and so forth. It continues to play out like this. And I suppose what makes a flowchart mindset attractive is that fighting games are extremely stressful to play at high levels. Even at any level. If you are being competitive, if you are invested, if you are really trying to improve and you really want to win and you really want to rank up, that shit is frustrating, man. I can tell you, at least speaking for myself. And when you take a flowchart into account, you also take it out of the equation. So you take the stress out of the fight because you know that you're going to win no matter what, so long as they stay within the flowchart. If everything they do is something that you have already predicted and have a yes or no outcome for their action, then there's no reason to think, there's no reason to try and judge, there's no reason to even guess. You can just tell at any given time what you need to do, and therefore the win is practically assured. So if flowcharting is such a good answer to not only make your win assured, but to take the stress out of a fighting game, why doesn't everyone flowchart? And the answer to that is very simple, is because you cannot cover a flowchart with everything. You cannot account for every single possibility. Eventually, at some point, something will happen which the flowchart cannot take into account. Whether it's a character that you haven't predicted, whether it's something that they do that you haven't predicted, if it's something that they did that you didn't know about. There's always going to be a situation where you can do what I call break out of the flowchart. And once you get into that unknown zone, if you get into that area where they cannot predict what you're going to do, their game plan falls apart. It is a catastrophic failure that you get to watch before your eyes, where suddenly they have no idea what to do, and they will frantically, as hard as possible, try to force you back into the flowchart. It's too late. You can't put the toothpaste back into a tube. Once you're out of the flowchart, it is open season 9 times out of 10, and it is one of the most fun and rewarding things that you can possibly do in fighting games if you're on the end of dishing out that punishment. So where do we go from here? What does this mean? Does it mean that you shouldn't play a high tier character if you are a low rank player? Are you at risk of becoming a flowchart player as a result, or just using those tools that a character has as a constant crutch to be able to get you through a fight? Answer to that is a resounding no. I've always believed in the philosophy of you should play the character that you want, whether it's the character that's the most fun, whether it's the character that you relate to most as a person, whether they look cool, or whether that you just are a person who likes to win and wants to play a character who gets you the most wins regardless of how they look or appear. Play who you want to play because you want to have the most fun. There's no point in playing a game if you're not having fun. But you just need to be aware of when you're using these things potentially as a crutch, when you're relying on them too much, because once you get up to a certain level, you're going to start seeing diminishing returns. The higher you get from the wins that you are earning from these gimmicks and tactics and potential flowcharts that you're using, the less and less rewards that you'll see, because you'll be running into higher skilled players. And those higher skilled players have seen these tricks before. They know how to deal with them and will punish you accordingly. Unfortunately, there is no easy way to get ahead in fighting games, whether it's using a high-tier character or not. And it's just something that you need to keep in mind as you progress along your road towards whatever goals you have. So that's it from me, guys. What do you think? I know this was a little bit of a shorter episode than usual, but it's a topic that I wanted to make a video about for some time, and I think it's pertinent. I think it's interesting to have this kind of discussion about whether it's worth using a high-tier character if you are a potentially lower-skilled player, or whether you are one of those players and you're like, nah, fuck it, I like just winning and not having to think about it. If you're that person, tell me that as well. I want to know your thoughts. Either way, I think it's, like I said, it's a good topic. I like it. Yeah, that's about it, guys. So I got nothing else. I'm waffling at this point, so I'm going to say kisses, hugs, belly rubs. I will see all of you very soon.